Start up the main screen. Nope, we're going to start the full screen.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. It stopped turning green on my screen. There
It
it goes.
stopped turning green. Oh, okay. Should have been gray on your screen.
No, no, my little voice bubble.
Oh, yeah, Discord. I don't trust Discord. Mine is always green on Discord. It's very strange. Like it never turns off. Doesn't matter if I mute
Yeah, that
the
is weird.
mic. It it, it makes me nervous because I don't know if it's working or not. It is a thing that I don't know how to deal with. Discord it has many problems for me, and I don't know why. I yell at it. I beat it. I change the settings all the time, but it doesn't stick. I think that was the source of all our tech issues last week was Discord. And in trying to fix Discord, I broke OBS.
Ah, yes.
And then that complicates everything. So, good morning. My name's Waldo.
I'm Thomas.
Um, oh, I forgot my last name. My name is Waldo Scorsese, and we watch the news sometimes. And
I'm Thomas Bay.
Thomas Bay, Waldo Scorsese, and Thomas Bay. This is a good combo. Uh, I like to pick a different last name every week. Keeps it interesting. Uh, so not a whole ton of news going on today. So we'll cruise the news and then maybe do some more of the philosophy stuff. If you're interested, maybe later we'll have a special guest who wanted to talk about it. And we'll always keep chat in mind and make some videos and then all the fun stuff.
Cool.
Let's get started. Switch to the main screen. Bring up this and go here. Mr. Trump claims that he's exonerated and demands his boxes back. Expert says he's confessing to intent. Every time he speaks, he brings himself one step closer to conviction. His legal strategy and political strategy are at odds with each other.
Um, Now, are these from the same story? Because I think I did see
You're
something
right.
about him getting off from the that New York case that was filed against him.
There was a business case that was filed against him that he has been uh, that has been dropped. It wasn't the big Alvin Bragg one, but it was a let's see which one it was. It was about his business dealings. This was specifically a business thing for him that got dropped in New York. I
Oh, it
can
was a golf tax case. Okay.
yeah. So that was about his uh, resort doing a thing, golf tax, like you said. But
That's
uh,
not the other New York
that's not
investigation.
the other New York investigation. No,
Okay.
but
Cool.
just very similar to the E. Jean Carroll, who is going to be suing him again, possibly. They've brought it up. He goes to court. He says one thing, and they have a defense and stuff like that. But then he goes on TV and starts saying things that either implicate him or he does the crime again. E. Jean Carroll is uh, putting together a second defamation trial against Trump because of the things he said on his CNN town hall.
I really don't understand how she's supposed to justify this.
I agree with you. She might not be able to justify it, but there's now a precedent set that he goes on TV and talks shit about her and says lies
Well,
about her,
sure.
and then she sues him for it. And then he could be lying about the first case. I don't know.
Well, okay, but that's the thing though, is in order to prove defamation,
Hmm.
and be awarded damages like this,
Hmm.
of she's asking for $10 million.
Hmm.
She has to prove that he cost her $10 million,
I know.
which there's no fucking way. There's no way that she lost $10 million over Trump saying it didn't happen. Unless she had projected book sales, which there's no way she did, of greater than 10 million, and she didn't sell anything,
Hmm.
then I mean, there's just no way that that $10 million is a reasonable sum for a defamation case. Ridiculous.
Carroll's attorneys wrote in the motion seeking the amended complaint that Trump doubled down on his prior defamatory statements. I think they're saying that because he did the thing again, that they get to sue him again. I don't know. It's a difficult legal place to be, and I don't. I definitely see your point that he's not costing her any money, but at the same time, if he's lying on news about somebody, they should be able to sue him. And maybe the number comes down. What if that number was much smaller? Hey, he did it again. We're suing him again for $75.
Well, yeah, obviously, then you maybe have a case,
Okay.
but I mean, yeah, maybe he cost her sales of 3 books,
Okay.
but at the same time, that at that point, it's not even worth bringing to court, because you're paying lawyers substantially more than $75 to do this.
Is is it a principle thing? I mean, I recognize that it's not worth bringing to court over $75, and they are lawyers, and they will get a piece of however much that number is. Good lawyer will get a piece of that $10 million, and if it's a $5 million, the lawyers get less of a piece. Um, is there any way a court could order him to stop talking about it? I
Yeah,
don't.
they actually can do that, yeah.
Okay, be like, hey, listen, you've been found guilty this first time for $5 million. You've been found not guilty, liable. You're right. I remember our talk about this. He's been found liable the first time for $5 million. We found you liable a second time. Here's a court order. Stop saying these things. Stop talking about
Yeah, that's when it becomes like if if you issue an injunction against talking about it,
it. Hmm.
um, then if he does continue to talk about it from that point, then what you can do is you can hold him in contempt of court, which then has its own set of penalties and whatnot.
Okay. And the first thing the media is going to do is ask him about it.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, it wasn't an accident that this lady on the CNN town hall asked him about it immediately. Like, obviously, she's going to do that. And then he talks about it because he has self control issues, I would suggest. Uh, and in the same vein, he is speaking about this documents case. And if he says things into a camera that confess his intent, is that usable in court?
yeah, it is.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, if he says he did the things, and then I mean, you can use that in court. It's just a. I don't think he's in control of himself. He is a force of nature rather than a thinking, planning person.
Okay.
So now that everyone understands that the Presidential Records Act plus the Clinton Sox case totally exonerated me from the continuing witch hunt brought on by corrupt Joe Biden, the DOJ, deranged Jack Smith, and the radical left Marxist thugs, when are they going to drop all charges against me, apologize, and return everything that was illegally taken, Fourth Amendment, from my home? This was nothing other than election interference. This was nothing other than election interference. You know what doesn't work in an actual court? Complaining about the Clintons.
That is true.
It doesn't work in an actual court. If he's been accused of doing a thing and he goes in there and says Hillary did this and Bill Clinton did the Sox case, it doesn't get him anywhere within the trial. Like that doesn't exonerate him. It doesn't get him off. It
No, but
doesn't convince a jury.
it does convince voters though. That's
It
the
does
thing.
convince voters. Yeah, you're right. And so his political ambitions are clashing with his legal defense.
Yeah, potentially.
It's best for his it's best for his campaign to go out and talk shit about this, but it's bad for his legal team, and I will have to figure out which one wins in the end. I mean, if he gets convicted, what happens to his run? How much stuff? If he gets off, what happens to his run? I think if he got found not guilty, I mean, I think he absolutely wins the presidency. Yeah, and I think still on this idea of him winning the presidency, Republican support for Trump has increased even as he faces dozens of felony charges. I got the graph right here. This is a good photo, I think. Mary thing. There it is. Yep. Has Trump done something illegal, unethical, or nothing wrong? 78% of Democrats said it was legal, 14 said it was unethical only, and 8% said nothing wrong. Republicans, 13% illegal, 33% unethical, 50% nothing wrong. Independents, 58 illegal, 21 at unethical, 25 at nothing wrong. What do you think of
Seems
this
about right.
chart right here?
Mm. Well, I think you have clear bias from both of your sides of the aisle in one direction or another, which is to be expected.
Okay, but
And as usual, independents are split about 50-50.
yeah, that I don't trust independents. uh,
And it seems about par for the course to me.
Now, if he were found guilty, would these numbers change? If he were found guilty of this thing, because this is a criminal matter, so it's not a uh, liable like in the civil thing. If he's found guilty, do these numbers move?
Maybe a bit. I bet you pretty much all of the bars moved slightly to the right, but I think that the people that have these opinions already are not likely to change them very much. You might get the independents to move that orange bar up further to the right, probably taking it from the purple.
Okay, I agree with you, and that makes me nervous because if hypothetically he's found guilty, he's given 1 year house arrest or something along those lines. I honestly don't think he's going to get 200 years. He's going to get 2 or 3 years house arrest or something like that. And uh, this green 50% right here of Republicans who say he did nothing wrong won't change.
That is a possibility, yeah.
And I think that's because that 50% of Republicans don't care about facts and reality. Doesn't matter. Everything is opinion to them, and the world is what they want it to be.
I think that Democrats and Republicans, and probably even most independents too,
Hmm.
um, they don't do enough research to know enough about facts and reality to have an opinion on them.
I think that's very true for the
Um,
independents. That's why they're always at 50-50. Or they swap back and forth between voting for George W. Bush and then Obama.
oh, I certainly don't think that Democrats or Republicans in general, people don't have time to do what we do and sit here and look at politics all the time.
Okay.
Um, they're busy with their lives, and they occasionally see information from whatever source of media they prefer, whether that's Fox News or if that's CNN or if that's the fucking Huffington Post.
Hmm.
You know, um, but other than that, it's not like they're sitting here reading these articles all the time. I don't think they are. I don't think that most people are hyper political the way that people like you and I are.
Hmm. And I have to
Um, they
wrestle with
might
that. You're right.
watch a Trump speech from time
Hmm.
to time, and if they did, and Republicans, of course, are much more likely to watch a Trump speech. And so, if they are watching the Trump speech and Trump is saying, "Well, I did nothing wrong," well,
Then they believe it.
then they're gonna believe it. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. Um, I think the this kind of thing is how we get issues like the January 6th uh, thing that happened at the White House. Is that
Sure.
we can't agree on reality, and one of us, specifically Mr. Donald Trump, is saying, "I won. It was rigged." I mean, that's a good reason to storm the White House. An illegal, rigged election is a real good reason to storm the White House. I just don't think that he told the truth about it. It wasn't illegal, in fact. It wasn't rigged. He lost. And I worry that this 50% will keep believing whatever they want to believe. Facts be damned. And you're right, it could go this way as well. The Democrats over here at 78 could be believing incorrect things and then acting upon them.
I think that looking at the facts of the case, he definitely mishandled classified information,
Okay.
um, which I understand that there seems to be this argument that you have to prove intent for that, which is what got Hillary
Mm-hmm.
off with the whole server and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy that shit.
Okay.
There are plenty of people that mishandle classified information on accident all the time, and they go to jail for it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. But if he willingly and intentionally did with intent, do you think that makes the situation worse?
Well, it certainly makes the case stronger. I think that mishandling of classified information is bad whether you did it intentionally or not,
Okay.
but it
There's
makes the case
no
stronger in court.
okay. There's no uh, level of hey, I did this intentionally that would make it worse morally in your eyes.
It depends on the intent behind mishandling the classified information. Was it so that you could provide it to a foreign national?
That makes it worse, right?
Because that makes it a lot worse.
Okay.
But then it's the act of providing that information to a foreign national
Okay.
that makes it worse.
Okay. All right. Anything more to talk about, Mr. Oh well, we got said Ted Cruz. The tiers of justice in America are so brazenly partisan. Trump gets indicted for classified documents. Biden has thousands of documents in multiple locations. Democrats have completely weaponized the FBI and the DOJ to destroy their political rivals.
I don't have this link.
Oh, sorry. I'm not listening to him. I'm just reading what he's got.
Oh, okay.
I was just cruising Twitter this morning for info. I we don't have to listen to him, honestly. Uh, the words that he's saying are right there up on the screen, and I read them. That's all. Um,
Gotcha.
so, do we have a two-tier justice system that's harder on Republicans than Democrats? Does he have a point? Is he correct?
I think there is some amount of circumstantial evidence that may point in that direction.
Okay.
Um, for example, I just recently came across, and it may be because it's recent news,
Mm-hmm.
the finding that the special counsel, um, some special counsel investigated the FBI um, over the way that that whole Trump Russia investigation was handled,
Mm-hmm.
and found that a full investigation never should have even been launched. So we spent years talking about this, and there's this full FBI investigation,
Mm-hmm.
and then now they've reviewed it and gone, "Hey, wait, actually, you probably shouldn't have done that."
But
Well, but it happened.
it happened,
You did it,
and
right?
they found crimes, and they found some criminals. They
Well,
prosecuted a whole bunch of people for breaking the law.
for breaking the law, but a lot of this was like tax fraud and um,
Yeah.
reporting requirements, not related to national security or Russia itself, but they found, yes, they found crimes, but they didn't find anything related to what they were supposed to be finding, which was evidence of Russian collusion.
Hmm. I mean, that doesn't work for the normal people, does it? I'm standing in front of a judge and I say, Your Honor, it's true that there's heroin in my car, but the cop pulled me over for a broken taillight, and I do not have a broken taillight. He should not have pulled
Well,
me over, which
well,
means you
actually, that
cannot
does.
prosecute me for
Um,
the heroin in my car.
that well, actually, it does work though.
How does that
Maybe
work?
not, maybe not under your scenario there, but if somebody is issued, if a cop is issued a warrant to go into your home to look
Hmm.
specifically for a, let's say, a murder weapon,
Hmm.
if they find weed or heroin in
Hmm.
your home while they're looking for a, while they're on a warrant to find a murder weapon,
Hmm.
they are not allowed to take that heroin and then charge you for heroin possession.
Okay. I thought they were.
They are not.
Okay.
If they have a warrant to look for a very specific thing in your home, they can't charge you for the other stuff that they find there while they're there that first time. Now, they might go back and get another warrant for the other stuff.
They might call immediately the judge and say, "Hey, I found some heroin. Can I get a bench warrant?" And then they get that immediately, and they say, "Yeah, go ahead." All right. Um, I would be worried about a police state that is pulling people over for nothing and then charging them for things. That would be worrisome to me. But I don't think that it's such a big deal when it comes to a person of that level. The FBI investigates all uh, presidential nominees, all of them. That shouldn't
Um,
be a surprise. They ought to. They ought to determine
I,
whether or not
I
Barack Obama is a secret Kenyan. Like they should investigate that
how do you know that the FBI investigates all presidential candidates?
because I guess that they do. It doesn't seem, and this is just me being a conspiratorial uh, Alex Jones fan. I'm a pretty big fan of his. He does a lot of good work, you know. And the FBI is checking on every single person within the government. Yeah, the FBI, police state. Yeah, I think that they do. They do background checks of these things, and they look for the people that are going to be in charge to be secret spies or Manchurian candidates or surprise canyons. I don't think you should be surprised by that. I think it's fine.
Um, I don't think that's how this works.
I don't know that they do it officially, but they unofficially do some things.
I also know that during at least one of these investigations, um, the FBI went before a FISA court
Hmm.
and knowingly lied to the judge to get a warrant to that was the wiretapping case to
Hmm.
perform the wiretapping of the president or the presidential candidate at the time,
Hmm.
Trump.
Yes.
So they still had to get a warrant to
Hmm.
do this.
Hmm.
They went to the judge. They lied to the judge
Hmm.
about what evidence they had so that they could get the warrant to spy on a presidential candidate.
Hmm. I'm not saying that didn't happen. I just don't think it's terrible. I mean,
You
it's
don't
not
think that it's
good.
terrible
It's not
for the
good, but it's
FBI
not
to be able
an
to lie to a judge to start an investigation into an American citizen and violate their rights to privacy.
what are they trying to accomplish? The police lie to people all the time. If you were
Not to judges.
not to judges,
They're not
uh,
supposed to lie
they're
to
not
judges,
supposed to
at
lie to
least.
judges, but they lie
And if
to
they do, they're
people all the
supposed to
time.
lose their jobs.
They lie to people all the time. Uh,
Okay, but
and
we're
we're
talking about a court and
yeah,
getting a warrant. And our whole judicial system with the whole thing about getting warrants in the
Mm-hmm.
first place and whatnot is that this is supposed to be part of our checks and balances,
I
right?
agree that it is bad to
Your
lie to the judge. Is it
your police
world-ending?
officers.
Is it world-ending? Dismantle the FBI levels of bad? No.
I think that it sets a
Fire
very
that guy,
dangerous precedent, and I also
and
you didn't ask me about if we should be dismantling the FBI. You asked me
okay.
if there is. I mentioned that there is at least some circumstantial evidence that the FBI and other institutions are used as a weapon in some cases against candidates that they don't like.
Um, do we know that they don't like them, or that they are shady operators? Because I think investigating Trump is almost always warranted. The man is
Um,
crooked
I think
and
that
corrupt as hell.
weren't there leaked emails from some of the investigators that were on the case specifically talking shit about Trump and how much they hate him
Yes. Why do they hate him? Because he's crooked and
because
corrupt
they're
as hell.
leftists.
Because he's crooked and corrupt as shit. He is the most corrupt individual I've ever had the pleasure of seeing.
I
He
don't
is
think that's
the
why.
most
I don't think
crooked
that was
person
the
in the
basis
planet.
of those text
He
messages.
is literally the worst human being that America has ever produced.
You, that is absolutely ludicrous. But
No,
um,
but those people
the
didn't
the
like
e-
him.
the text messages,
You're right.
they didn't like him first.
Right.
I mean,
Why didn't they like him?
because they
Because
didn't
they
like him
think he's
because
a
they're
criminal.
politically on the left.
And why doesn't the left like him? It's not his policy.
It certainly is.
No, his policies are crooked and corrupt also, but he is a bad guy. He is
That's
the bad
ridiculous.
guy.
Even
He is
even if Trump
awful.
was squeaky clean, if he still had the policies that he has, you guys would still hate him.
But they wouldn't be trying to find his crimes. If he were squeaky clean and never committed any crimes and wasn't in court literally most of his entire life, they wouldn't be starting investigations. They'd be activists pushing against his agendas. But he is a criminal. He has been very, very, very dirty his entire life. He was 4 years old, and his dad started paying him a salary to dodge taxes. Now, 4-year-old Donald Trump is not responsible for that, but he has been dirty his entire life. And yes, leftists don't like him because of that. He is a liar and he's a cheater.
So stop. You don't
He's a
like him because he
cheater.
came down the golden elevator or the
I
golden
don't like him
escalator,
because he's a
and he
cheater.
said I don't want illegal immigrants coming over here.
Right, that's a bad thing for our
And
country.
our country is not doing so great under Obama.
I have 100 reasons to dislike him. That's one of them, sure.
Sure, and what I'm saying is that those investigators in the FBI whose
Uh-huh.
text messages were released, they don't dislike the guy because he's shady. They disliked him because they are on the left.
Why not both? Let it be both. If he's shady and he's dirty and he's committing crimes, then let's investigate him. I'm not happy that
Okay,
they lied to
so
get that one warrant,
back to
but I'm glad that the investigation happened. Fire that one guy, continue the investigation. Charge anybody you can with any crimes they committed.
sounds absurd if the basis for the investigation in the first place was uh, illegal. And then on top of that, the most annoying thing about that investigation is yes, 17 people were charged with crimes, but and every time this comes up in discussion, I'll have
Mm-hmm.
some fucking idiot that tells me, "Oh, well, the investigation into Russian collusion turned up 17 people who were charged with crimes."
Mm-hmm.
And the implication there is that they were charged with crimes related to colluding with the Russians. And
They
that is
weren't.
simply not true.
I agree. They're not. They
But
were
the
his in his
implication in that
orbit committing
statement
crimes.
is, well, not
They were
even
his
not even crimes.
guys committing
Okay,
crimes.
hold on.
He is a crime
And
guy.
not even crimes that they committed while they were working with or for him. In some cases, these were crimes that were committed back in like 2012, 2013, before they had any interaction with Trump.
Sure.
So again, I mean, these were totally unrelated to Russian collusion. But the most annoying thing about that conversation and the 17 people that were criminally charged um, is that there's this conflation
Hmm.
of, well, 17 people were charged in this investigation, therefore Russian collusion must have been true. It's simply not.
I don't think that's what they're saying. They're
That
not
is the
saying no.
implication every time that it comes up. Yes.
I'm implying that he is a crime guy and he is surrounded by criminals. And those 17 people prove that he is, in fact, surrounded by criminals. He likes criminals. He hangs out with them. They are attracted to him because he is a mob boss. He is a criminal. He is crooked, dirty, and the most corrupt president we have ever had, without a doubt.
If you say so.
And because of that, I think it's, you're right, it is illegal to have started that investigation. Fire that guy. Try not to do it in the
He won't be.
future.
I don't think he was.
And censure him. Punish him at work somehow. Put him on a work probation. Do something. That's fine. I don't care. The FBI can have a process for that. But that doesn't mean he's not corrupt. That doesn't mean he's not crooked. Because I think he is. I every time things come up, I don't think it's, this isn't the FBI going after somebody they don't like. The FBI doesn't like criminals, and they're going after a criminal who happens to be Donald Trump. The FBI investigates crimes. Donald Trump commits many crimes and is surrounded by criminals. That's not them targeting him because of his political affiliation.
All I'm saying
Hmm.
is that it seems that these mishaps uh, in the process by which these things are supposed to go in
Hmm.
only ever seem to go in one direction.
I can appreciate that thing you just said. Yes, they do happen to go towards Republicans.
Yeah, all these
You're going to
accidental
suggest, and you're
things where
suggesting,
the
yeah,
FBI lies, the FISA court,
that that was a person
you know,
trying
whatever.
to accomplish a goal. I agree. And he lied to accomplish his goal. He said, I want this investigation and think it's important, so I'm going to put a lie on here so that they will accept it. And he is pushing for something. And he's not, I don't suggest he's pushing for a political thing. I think he's pushing for a uh, policing thing. Hey, uh, we're going to lie about this so that we can get this investigation and then we will be proven correct.
Well,
And that was his
that is
goal.
absolutely against the law.
I know it is. And I accept that. And I recognize that. And I think he should not have done that. And he will, and he ought to be punished for it. I want to investigate and prove Trump is a criminal the right way.
Well, that would be preferable to setting a very dangerous precedent.
I know. And that does make me worry. A police state would not be good, I think. If the investigators get to do whatever they want whenever they want, then it could be worrisome. And we would not, and I would not like that. So I just found these this morning. I didn't send them to you earlier, so if you don't have any much to say about them, that's okay. Sorry, there wasn't a whole lot of news going on this week. Uh, Obama suggests digital fingerprints to counter misinformation so that we know what's true and what's not true. Obama says he's been target of deepfakes, predicts the next election cycle will be rife with false info.
Yeah, deep fakes could end up being a problem in
Yeah,
another year or two.
I agree. Yeah, they are pretty bad. They're kind of funny though, watching the former presidents play video games or make ranking charts,
Tier lists, yeah,
tier lists
I've
for
seen those.
funny little things. They're very funny. I love Biden's his headphones don't fit, and I think it's fucking adorable. Uh, it's silly. But yeah, what do you think about digital fingerprints?
I'm not sure how you implement it,
Yeah,
but I'm not a computer guy.
yeah.
Well, I guess I
Um,
am, but I'm
software
not
kind
a
of guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
software, yeah, like
A
super in depth
security guy. Yeah,
coding security type stuff.
yeah. It is an issue. It's a thing I've talked about with maybe you and uh, one other person before, but like the idea of like a national ID that isn't a driver's license, but it has like a microchip in it, and everybody gets a scanner in their house, and they can hook it up to their smartphone. And you, what do you think about something like that? And you have to have it
Um,
to vote. I would be fine with it.
yeah, I like it for the idea of voting.
Okay, but what
Um,
if the national ID, you got it, you had to have it to vote, but it also had a microchip, and in your and everybody was given like a reader where they could plug it into a computer or a laptop or a smartphone to access
Absolutely
the
not.
government stuff. No, you don't like that idea.
No. I think that is a gateway. Well, this whole idea of digital fingerprinting in the first place is to recognize deep fakes and whatnot,
I don't think. Yeah, I wouldn't attach it
which
to a
wouldn't
YouTube
be a.
account. I want to say anytime you're dealing with the government, you have to have that ID. You want to apply
I
for
think
unemployment? Have that ID. You want to request disability benefits? Have that ID.
okay, I see
Only,
what you're
only
saying.
when you're dealing
Um,
with the federal government would
I
you need
think
that.
that potentially you run the risk of it turning into. I mean, we've tried this. We tried this with our social security numbers, and then this turned into, oh, every time you do anything ever, you have to have your fucking social security account or number tied to it. Um,
Social
I don't know
security
about it.
numbers were not designed for that. That's
No.
why they're so easy to steal. That's why they're so easy to guess. If you know where I was born, you can get 3 or 4 of those numbers right off the bat. Uh, and you're halfway to cracking it. They weren't intended for that. Uh, we are using them beyond their intended purpose. Their purpose was, hey, you're paying into this Social Security account. That's it. That was the only thing they were ever invented for, and the fact that we are using them as verification of identities is wrong. So we should update the program and make a better ID. And that would be my suggestion. You don't need something like that for YouTube or the internet or uh, accessing your Twitter. Nah, it's a terrible idea. But
Yeah, there would have to be a lot of protections in place for that. Like,
mhm,
you'd have to make it so that you'd have to have a law that says specifically that uh, private corporations are not allowed to use the national ID as a form of identification.
mhm,
Um, because if you don't, then the first thing that any site that wants to restrict anonymous posting then is going to do that.
yeah,
And I don't like that. I mean, it's already annoying enough. Every time I try to create a new account, they want my phone number now.
mhm,
It's like, fuck off. You're gonna sell my phone number
mhm.
to,
And then you're gonna get all those spam
God
calls.
knows
Yeah,
who
yeah,
many people.
yeah, all
Yeah.
of them. And then
Um,
yeah, I don't answer my phone anymore, like ever.
yeah, it's super annoying.
If it rings, I know it's not anybody I want to talk to.
Yeah. So that's my take on that. Is
Okay.
I think that you would have to have a law in place to prevent um, private organizations from using this ID uh, in order to prevent anonymity.
Okay.
They have to find their own ways to do that. Uh,
I would agree with that. That would be fine with me.
but other than that, yeah, I think that national ID is generally a good idea.
All right. We agree on a thing. My goodness. Again, yeah, I didn't send this to you earlier, but Texas Governor Abbott signs a law shutting diversity offices at public universities. The law comes as the Supreme Court later this month is widely expected to ban colleges and universities from considering race as a factor in their admissions decisions.
Great. Great.
Great. I don't want the state telling colleges what to do.
Well, these are public colleges and universities, right?
Yeah,
Public being that they are funded
funded
by the state.
by the state. Yeah,
Funded by the state. So they should be able to tell the colleges and universities what to do.
I know.
In a private one, they're not. This isn't for
This
private
isn't for private.
colleges and universities.
Okay. I do want the state telling them what to teach in public schools, but I want them to make smart decisions. This doesn't seem to me like a smart decision.
I think it does. I think that when you apply for college in the first place, it should be a blind admission.
Seems impossible to me.
Well, no, there's all kinds of processes you could use. You could assign everybody a number, and you just don't ask the question of race on your
Are
on
you going to
your
ask
admission form.
their home address? Are you going to ask them where they went to high school? Because that's a pretty good indication of what your race is.
Um, you could have that hidden from the admissions officer.
Okay, so the admissions officer gets what? Just
Their
list of
grades,
test
a
scores, and that's
list,
it.
their grades, a list of their of what courses they took, so like what level they're at, whether or not they already have college credits. They get their test scores from the SAT or ACT or both. Um, they
Hmm.
get uh, they get the admissions essays that they often require. Um,
And the admission essay, if it's about your life or about things that have happened to you, will suggest who you are and where you live. A
they
lot of
can,
those admissions are going to be like, what? Tell us about you. Tell us a thing that happened to you. Tell us the emotional thing that happened to you. Tell us about the worst thing that happened to you. Tell us about
yeah.
something about
So
you.
they can that can happen, but the whole point in this case would be to, as much as possible, eliminate race from the question entirely.
Okay.
Um, so yes, it might crop up in some of those essays, but we're no longer opening an admissions form and then looking at the name and then looking at the ethnicity and making a determination as to whether or not we're gonna have higher or lower standards for this person entering anymore.
I don't think that happened.
It does happen. In fact,
Hmm.
I'll pull it up right now.
I think that it's an exaggeration because the people who don't like DEI like to exaggerate about how much it gets used.
No, this is it's there. It's pretty broadly accepted. Actually, the ones that are the most affected by it are Asians.
Right, because they
If you
rate
are
them
an Asian,
differently.
you have to score absurdly higher than any other group um, in order to be accepted to a college or university.
Interesting. So we're not being equitable. If only we had some sort of program that could determine what is equitable. If only we had an office that we could discuss this in to
No, it's
determine
the
what
office
is.
that it's the program itself that is causing this inequity.
It is the program. It is the DEI initiatives that could prevent it. If they're not being equitable, the DEI initiative should be told they're not being equitable, and we should, if the admissions officer is raising the standards for Asians and lowering them from black people, it's the DEI office that ought to yell at him for doing so.
That's the opposite of what they're doing, though.
Then they're doing a bad job. And
They're
Texas
doing the
thinks that they're
job that
doing
they
a
were
bad
told to do.
job, and they're going to get rid of them. Okay.
Yeah. The purpose of a DEI office is not to um, is actually to enforce affirmative action policies, which do end up discriminating against Asians. Yes.
Then they're not doing a good job. And the state is going to take them away. All right. I'm not thrilled with this. I don't like.
Also, this is a good move in terms of reducing college costs because
They're
college
expensive and you can't prove them wrong. Yeah.
is absurdly expensive. And the problem with college is that as prices have gone up, our quality of education has not.
Hmm.
And what what has happened in colleges is that the administrative staff has just ballooned to unreasonable levels.
Hmm.
I think we're, and it's been a while since I looked these statistics up, but I want to say that the um, number of administrative staff and their salaries
Hmm.
have like quadrupled
Hmm.
over the last 20 or 30 years, while the number of professors and the number of professors has not largely changed, and their salaries have increased like 20%.
The
So
professor's
it's
salaries
been,
increased 20%.
yeah, something like
Okay.
that.
But
Uh,
the
I might be wrong on that last figure.
administrators are suggesting I've gone way above 20%.
Yes, and
Okay.
also there are way more of them.
Hmm.
In fact, I'm pretty sure that it used to be that most of a college's budget went to the professors and their research,
Hmm.
and now the majority of college budget goes to administrative staff,
Okay.
and that has not improved the quality of education. So this office, in particular, is one of those areas where it's this entire office is all administrative staff.
Hmm. Coming up with DEI initiatives and things like that. And if
Yeah,
they're uh, doing a bad job and not being equitable, and all they're doing is enforcing the things you're describing, I'm kind of okay with getting rid of them. I'm not. Okay, you're almost selling me on it, but it was signed by a Republican governor. That makes me doubt the things that he's saying. But I'm okay. I'm always suspicious of those Republican governors. Mm, I don't want to reignite the entire college argument, but that problem you just described to me about the administrators and their salaries going up, this sounds like a capitalism problem. But I think that you're going to suggest that it's a government problem.
of course it's a government problem.
Okay, we we might look into that in the future. I'm suggesting it's a capitalism problem. There's money to be made, so they make the money as much as they can. Uh, and you're going to suggest it's a government problem. We've talked about that faucet and the spigot and the money stuff like that in the past. I don't want to do that whole thing again today.
Yeah.
Um, let's see what other newsy things do we have to talk about today. Let's close that. We can close that and that. Okay, we're done with the news stuff. That's all the news. Is there any news things that you wanted to talk about? Any super important uh, things that
Um,
popped up?
Not this week, but maybe by next week there'll be a. I've got my eye on a couple of things, but I don't want to bring them up yet
Okay.
until there's more information.
Okay. That is consistent for you. I like that. That's very nice. Um, you want to give us a hint?
There have been some hearings in the Senate Judiciary Committee
Okay.
uh, that sound relatively interesting, but maybe nothing will come of them. We'll see.
Okay. I have a feeling I know what you're talking about, but we're going to tease it. Sounds good. For the future.
Cool.
Kyle says this is the third thing you guys have agreed on. Where's my Saturday crossfire? I'm sorry, Kyle. I will try to be more combative. He needs it in a Saturday morning to get going. Just the left and the right feuding and trying to dunk on each other. Wakes him up in the morning. keeps them going. Um, After that, we can transition over to a philosophy debate,
Yeah.
if you'd like. I think, yes, last week we kind of left off with um, my chart that you don't like
Oh no.
for certain things. I posted it the on our Discord. I put it there so that anybody who wants it can adjust it and add to it or subtract from it. Then we can debate those changes. And then I put it on the community tab of the YouTube page. So YouTube pages have a community tab where you can like post things and post polls. I had 4 people vote for a poll. Um, it is a they're trying to be Discord is what they're doing, I think. So it is an interesting little thing that you
Interesting.
could take a look at if you wanted. If any viewers wanted to, they could take a look at it and like draw on it, or they can download it and draw on it, or add to it, or subtract from it, and move it or remove the red line that I know was very contentious between us, or delete all the things and then draw something else. That's the idea, anyway. Is that I would hope that anybody who watches or pays attention or wants to get in on the debate could go to this thing, download it, and adjust it.
All right.
And then you and I can argue over whether or not they adjusted it properly.
Sure.
Or I would probably say, hey, they adjusted it improperly or something along those lines. But anything specific that you wanted to bring up on the philosophy debate?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thinking about our last time,
Mm-hmm.
I think I may have found where the disconnect is.
Okay.
So I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions first.
I'm ready.
All right. So we established that uh, I have a desk, and if I look at the desk and I say, that's a desk,
Mm-hmm.
that's an objectively true statement. My desk is there.
Okay. I don't. Okay. That's a desk. Where I even think the word desk is a metaphysical description.
Okay. Well, we're using language to describe things, so we're gonna have to just accept that for now.
Yeah,
All
language
right.
and descriptions are part of the metaphysical, but I'm uh, on board with your desk. Hey, this is a desk. Great.
Okay. Now, um, can if-then statements be objectively true?
If then,
Yeah, so
uh,
if I move my desk 2 feet to the left, then my desk will be 2 feet to the left of where it currently is.
I'd say that's a correct statement, a true statement, and there are 2 subjective things in that statement that you made: desk and feet. Because what if you moved it 2 meters over instead
And
of 2 feet?
it wouldn't be objectively true that I moved it 2 feet. It would be true that I moved it two
Well,
meters.
what if I use inches and you use centimeters?
Well,
There's a
we
conversion there,
generally
isn't there?
agree
So that is
upon
a subjective
language so that we
thing.
that's
You've
silly.
you've mentioned
Uh,
2 subjective things in that statement. I moved my desk 2 feet to the left. There are 2 subjective things in that sentence. One, first desk. Second, feet.
we both understand the meaning behind desk and the meaning behind feet.
We
So
do because we were brought up in the same uh, tradition of language and measurements. So yes, I
it's fine.
comprehend what you're telling me.
We as human beings understand what it means to use language and communicate meaning.
Okay.
Um, so if I move my desk 2 feet to the left, then it is true that my desk will be 2 feet to the left of where it currently is.
I would agree that that's true.
Okay. Can we make objectively true statements about probability?
Objectively true statements about probability.
Yeah,
Probability is a
so like let's
measurement.
say if you get the COVID vaccine,
Hmm.
you are 30% less likely to contract COVID.
I would say that's a uh, true statement if it's based on research facts and statistics. Sure.
Sure. I'm just giving that as an example,
Sure.
right? Um, so we can make true if-then statements,
Sure.
and we can make true statements about probabilities.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. We can make true statements.
Okay. Um, if a person abuses a dog,
Okay.
that dog is going to have a release of cortisol in its brain.
Sure.
That's going to change some of that dog's brain structure.
I
And
can
animals,
recognize
being
that. Sure.
pattern recognizing entities, that dog may end up, or very likely, is going to have those changes in the brain reflect a distrust of humans.
Sure.
And
That
that
all
distrust
makes
of
sense.
humans is going to manifest in disfavorable behaviors such as timidness or even aggression towards humans.
I agree.
Okay,
That is a likely outcome.
so is it then a true statement that if you abuse a dog, then that dog will start to exhibit timid or aggressive behavior towards humans? Or very likely will.
Yes, I would say that's a true statement.
Okay, so even though that's born of the distrust of humans, which is part of the dog's subjective experience,
Hmm.
it is still a true statement
Hmm.
that one action will result in another behavior.
Sure.
Okay,
That's all
so
subjectivity to me
how is this all subjectivity?
because it's all product of the mind. The kicking of the dog would be an objective thing. The dog is an objective thing. The person is an objective thing. But the thought process, the trust, the unhappiness that happens with the dog, the fear. Where does the fear exist? The dog is afraid of humans. Where does that fear exist? Within the dog's mind. Where does that trust exist? Within the dog's mind. Where does that aggression? Where is that aggression born? Within the dog's mind.
Well, it doesn't matter
How does that not
because
matter? That
it's still going to very likely result in a particular set of behaviors from that dog in the end, right?
Yes, the behavior that the dog does, the snapping at strangers, the barking, and the biting of other people, those are objective. But the
Uh-huh. And
fear,
they
the
are,
trust, and the mistrust is subjective.
well, even then,
We
it may be
weave,
subjective, but we also know that that behavior is the result of objective things that are happening
yes,
in in the brain.
yes. An
So,
an objective thing happened. Dog got kicked. A subjective thing happened. He now distrusts humans. And then an objective thing happens after that where he bites the next person that he sees.
well, even
We
that
can cross back
second
and
part
forth.
is
This,
maybe not true. The because it's the objective release of the cortisol in the dog's brain and the shaping of neural feedback systems
mhm, those are objective
in
things.
the
I would
dog's
agree.
brain.
Those are objective things.
If those are objective things, then necessarily the dog's response or the dog's subjective experience is the product of objective realities that happen within the dog.
An objective thing happened, and it caused an objective thing to happen within the brain. And the brain, then we're going to call that distrust.
Uh huh. Yes.
Distrust is the subjective thing. The cortisol is an objective thing. The brain pathways, objective thing. Distrust is the name, the definition we have given to that brain pathway and that cortisol release. And the objective biting of the next person is caused by subjective distrust. That subjective distrust is caused by an objective cortisol and brain pathway.
Okay. So what I'm trying to get at
Hmm.
is you have enough within this path that we have. The If you abuse a dog, it's going to start to distrust humans, and having distrusted humans, it is going to behave in disfavorable ways.
Sure.
Okay, humans are pretty much the same. The
I
difference
would
that we have,
I would agree. We're a more complicated brain, but similar. Yes.
yes, well, the big difference that we have is that we're capable of communication.
Hmm.
So every dog has to learn that distrust of humans, um, or rather, every abused dog has learned that distrust of humans uh, from the physical act of having been abused.
Okay. I would agree. There's no complicated dog literature
Right.
proclaiming that people should or should not be trusted.
So basically, what humans have to our advantage is that in addition to being capable of recognizing patterns and whatnot, we also have our communication.
Hmm.
So I don't have to personally witness or personally experience a murder, for example, or
Hmm.
personally experience somebody attacking me out of the blue,
Hmm.
for somebody else to explain something that happened to me.
On board. So yeah, you hear about a terrible thing that happens, and that makes you fearful of the thing that might happen to you. I have never been to the Grand Canyon, yet I know that it exists because of reports that I trust.
Right. Now, it is generally disfavorable to perform actions that are going to do the same thing to humans as what happens in a dog, which is to um, cause harm in some way, to steal, to kill, to attack unprovoked. And doing so has the potential not just to increase these distrust levels in the individual for whom it affects, but because we are capable of communication, this is going to have an incremental effect on the whole of our society.
I could agree with that.
Okay,
If there is uh, reports of rampant crime, maybe in San Francisco, you would then think that it's a terrible place.
right. So, that being the case,
Hmm.
we can identify which behaviors are capable of increasing that level of distrust and the associated negative behavior that comes with it, right? If I don't trust my neighbor, if I don't trust somebody else um, with their promise to return the power tool that I
Hmm.
loan them, right? I'm not going to do it. And now that person is disadvantaged, and potentially the whole community is disadvantaged.
Yes, I could agree to that.
Okay,
I think you're describing sociology right now.
well, sure, but what I'm saying is that there is enough objectivity in the path of events that's happening here
Hmm.
that once we find the behaviors that cause this distrust,
Hmm.
then what we've come up with is morality or guidelines for our society, right?
Hmm.
That are um, that are contrary to those negative behaviors, right?
Sure. You've got a list of rules that are based on bad things that people have done in the past, harmful things that we don't want to continue, or things that cause distrust and bad things within our society. Great. I'm on board. That's a thing that we ought to have.
So these are ought statements,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're also if-then statements.
Sure. If someone insults me, I then feel bad.
Sure.
There are
So
three
I
subjectives in
will.
that sense.
What?
There are three subjectives in that sentence that I just made. If someone insults me, so that's subjective, I
I think you're gonna have to
feel
get off the word stand.
bad. I will give up the subjective and objective. But I think
Um,
you are building towards objective morality, which I don't think exists.
I think that
If
in
you
the
are
same way that it's objectively true that if you abuse a dog, then the dog will exhibit negative behaviors towards humans.
There are some objects in that sentence. There are some subjects in that sentence. There's some objective things in there, and there are some subjective things in that sentence. We are threading the line in the metaphysical area, which is why that's where they touch.
Did you read the link I sent you?
About, yes, and I read it, and I think it disagrees with you. Once I
You
got to the
think
bottom, I think it
it
disagrees with
disagrees with
you.
me?
Yes. Uh, that thing, uh, the one about God or the ethics versus morals?
The one about God.
Okay. Yes. Secular humanism is a thing. I think it's good. I think this is a worthy thing that people should do and ought to apply, but it is not objective. And the thing that I read down here that I thought was disagreeing with you was down in the conclusion. I know I'm skipping all of this stuff, but I read through it. Um, let's find. Morality is neither objective or subjective in the way that statements of fact are said to be objective or subjective. Nor is that type of objectivity really our concern. Our
Well,
legitimate
it's
concern
that
is that we
type
don't want people
of.
feeling free to do their own thing, and that's fine. I don't want people
Well,
to
hold on.
feel like they can break all the laws.
It's that type of objectivity, right?
Hmm.
So maybe we're talking about different types of objectivity then,
And
which
because
perhaps
of,
we are. But I don't
and
think that it's appropriate.
we very
I don't
well
think
could be.
I don't think that your type of objectivity is appropriate for discussion on morals. And the reason for that is because when I look at a statement like, um, I lost my train of thought. Fuck.
Sorry, objective morality doesn't exist. That's the point I'm getting to. And the morality does exist. I'm on board with you with one, morality, two, the necessity of morality. I want morality to exist. I want people to have them. I won't accept that they are objective because that leads to people telling you what is real. That leads to people creating an objective morality and then telling you that it's correct, and then they will look you right in the face, say that I am objectively moral, and I cannot be proven wrong. Okay. Let me put it to you this way.
Well, no, we can.
Let let me
There are
let me
plenty of.
suggest make a suggestion to you. I trust people who are seeking the truth, but I doubt anyone that says they found it. Is that a thing that you could comprehend, or what do you think about that statement? I trust people who are seeking truth, but I doubt anybody who says they found it.
Okay. But does the truth exist?
True things exist, sure. Could it be different from someone else? Sure. Also, facts are a thing that we can agree upon, but they can be undermined, they can be doubted, they can be uh, debated.
Well,
What
yeah,
if?
that's the whole point of like science and whatnot, but
Hmm.
that doesn't make the pursuit. I mean, that debate is all part of the pursuit of what is the truth,
Right.
right?
I would agree with that.
Um, but the truth itself, if somebody believes in a particular truth and it turns out that they are not correct, then
Hmm.
it just turns out that that's not what the truth is.
Sure. You can. We believed certain things were true, and then we were proven wrong, and we no longer believe them. Happens. Was it true back then? Was it
No,
true the first time? Okay.
even
But they felt like it. And if you
even the
lived your
first time.
entire life thinking that it was true, and you built an objective morality off of something that you didn't, that turned out later to not be true after you're dead, did they have objective morality? I don't think they did.
No,
Because
I
objective
don't think they did.
morality
But
cannot exist. It just simply can't.
well, if it is possible that the truth is um, is the truth regardless of what people think of it,
I don't like
right?
that definition.
Well,
That would,
it is true that the Earth revolves around the sun,
right.
and
That
for a long,
fits.
long time,
Uh huh.
the whole of society thought that the sun revolves around the Earth.
Hmm.
Well, the fact that the entire society thought that didn't make it any more true.
No. So did they
It wasn't
have
true.
objective morality? They didn't.
I think that objective morality, the same way that the truth exists independent of what everyone thinks of it, I think that objective morality also exists
And it's just what
independent
we think
of
of it?
no, independent of what everyone thinks of it. And our goal should be to get as close to it as possible.
And but because you're thinking and using this subjective device to find those objectives, you will always, you will never, you'll never get to it.
Maybe not. I don't
Okay.
necessarily agree with that, but I do think that we can strive to get as close as possible. Um,
And that's why I would trust you. Just like that little idea I had a minute ago. I trust you because you are seeking truth. But when you tell me that you have found the truth and you are absolutely objectively moral and you have found objective morality, I'm going to doubt you. When you
that's fine.
and that is the position that I've taken only because.
Now, then there's the further question
Hmm.
is if we generally agree upon a set of morals,
Hmm.
and so far this is as close as we've gotten to what is the objective morality.
Hmm.
Um, if somebody violates that morality, have they objectively violated morality?
No, they've subjectively violated morality because if they think
So
that they did it for a good reason, then we have to come together to find out why they broke the morality rules or uh, and subject the situation. We have to determine the situation. Somebody kicked a dog. We have determined that kicking the dog is subjectively wrong, but it was biting a child. Kick the dog. Kicking dogs is wrong, but if it's biting a child, I will kick a dog. You see
okay,
how subjectively I'm telling you I am correct. But if all you heard was I kicked a dog and you have an objective morality that kicking dogs is wrong, then you will say I'm wrong.
well, no, that's still a statement of facts and circumstances, right? If the dog is biting somebody and you kick it to get it off,
Hmm.
well, That's different from
So,
just kicking the dog outright. But
right.
what you've done
So,
is you change the facts of the matter,
right.
right? We make our moral
Subjectively,
judgments.
we're making a
Well,
different
no,
moral judgment. We're making a different moral judgment. Morals,
we
I
make
think,
our
are
moral judgment
subjective.
based on the facts of the matter, right?
Yes, at the bottom of the tree is physical reality.
And so, if we're making our moral judgments based on the facts of the matter, and you change the
Hmm.
facts, then of course the moral judgment will change. But we have this set of rules that if the facts of the matter support that you are in violation of the set of rules that we have set,
Hmm.
I would say that you are objectively in violation of those rules.
I think that's an incorrect statement. I mean, you're not objectively wrong. You're subjectively wrong. I I don't think that either one of us is going to move on this issue because it's not that we're disagreeing on morals, on what the morals or the ethics are. It's just this one red line right here. These are all subjective things to me. The moral that you don't kick a dog is subjective because depending on changes within the physical, you can now be okay with kicking that dog. Depending on what the physical is, you can make a metaphysical assumption and then have a moral. It's immoral to kick dogs. I agree. It is also moral to kick dogs that are biting children. You see how we go up the tree and we have a physical thing that happens, kicking a dog, or kicking a dog that's biting a child, and then we make a metaphysical determination that it is biting and harming a child, and then we have a different moral. And because that moral is changeable depending on the circumstances underneath it, it is not objective.
Well, no, that moral doesn't change depending on the circumstances. The moral is um, don't commit unprovoked aggression,
Okay,
right? So don't just kick the dog for no reason.
right. I could agree.
But there's another moral that says defend those that need defense, in which case there's a child that's being bit by a dog.
Right. And
So,
in this very clear case, it's easy to make that determination. In less clear cases, in more difficult situations of a of moral nature, sometimes there's a gray area where both people are wrong or both people are kind of right. And in those situations, again, those would be subjective. We have to determine who is correct and who is wrong, who is right and who is wrong, who is correct in their aggression or not correct in their aggression.
well, in order to do that, in order to make that determination, we have to have something to measure it against in the first place, right?
Sure, we can measure things. You can measure subjective things against other subjective things. You can.
I think that falls on extremely shaky grounds. Um,
Of course it does. Everything's shaky. Society might
if
collapse.
if I say, um, don't throw that paperclip,
Uh huh.
and then you throw a paperclip,
We're in the physical layer. Okay, great. And then I did it.
is
Okay.
it objectively true that you violated the command, don't throw that paperclip?
It's true that I disregarded the things that you told me, and I did the action anyway. The action is objective. The paperclip, objective. You and I, objectives. The throwing is the objective. There's very little subjective within this thing, except my choice to throw the thing against
Well,
your
well, what
wishes.
about?
Your
Well, hold
wishes
on.
exist within your head. My idea to disregard your wishes exist within my head. That puts them in the subjective realm.
What? Hold on. So
I could come up with different words for them if you want me to. Honestly,
I don't think
I
that the words you're using then have much meaning. If
They have
you
all
can,
the meaning in the
you
world, and
said
there's
it.
so much meaning that we can't wrap our tiny brains around them.
No, I mean, you. How
I
can you
think
say it's true that you violated the command?
you
But
can be subjectively true. You can be objectively true. Objectively, a rock is a rock. Objectively. I hit one rock with another rock. That's an objectively true statement. I insulted you and you felt bad. That is a subjectively true statement. Insults,
well, if both of those things happened,
uh huh.
so if
They're
you
both true.
use an insult
Uh huh.
and they are both true,
Uh huh.
I think they're objectively true.
I don't think so.
Yes.
Because the insult doesn't really exist except within our brains. And then the feeling that you had is real. It's just subjectively real. The
Yeah, see, I
insult
totally
is
disagree
subjectively real.
with that
The
definition.
feeling that you had is subjectively real. Is a feeling less real than a rock? I would suggest that yes, a feeling is less real than a rock. It's not unreal. It doesn't not exist. Feelings exist. Thoughts exist. But they aren't within this physical box. That's all I'm saying. The, the feeling you had of insult does not exist within this physical box. Doesn't mean it's not real. It just doesn't exist within this physical box. It can definitely exist within the metaphysical box. And we can come up with an ethic of I should not insult you. And we can come up with a moral of I feel like I should not insult other people. And we can come up with an ethic of within a proper society, we don't insult people. We can, yeah.
I think that it, if we can apply the word true to it,
Mm-hmm.
that means that it would be true also for an outside observer. So, if an outside observer saw you insult me or heard you
Mm-hmm.
insult me and then
Mm-hmm.
saw my reaction to it, then that outside observer could reasonably come to the conclusion that you insulted me and
Mm-hmm.
I had a negative reaction to it.
Mm-hmm. I can accept all of those things.
And that is a true statement. I'm saying
Still a true
maybe
statement.
it's my
Fine.
problem is that when I use objectively, when I use objective, I mean it's true. It's a true thing.
Okay. I would draw a distinction between those two things. True statements can happen. You can truly insult someone, and you can truly have your feelings hurt. But I don't think you can objectively have your feelings hurt.
All right, so we have been using a different
We've
definition
been
of
using a different
objective.
definition, and
Um,
there's a reason I've come to that
so
conclusion. It's just so that we can. Why do I have this uh,
well, all right. So
delineation?
what if I separate? I stop using objective morality and I use the true morality.
I would probably be more on board for it. We could argue on what is the true morality.
Yes, we can, and that is
Okay,
the whole purpose of philosophy and science in the first place.
sure, of course it is. But I don't think. But the people who use the word objective morality are trying to control things. They're trying to say, they're often religious people who are saying that objective morality is correct and I can prove it. And I don't think that they can. There's a
Well,
reason I'm against it.
I think
Because,
that if you can say that there is a if they're using objective in the same way that I am,
mm-hmm,
which is to say that there is a true morality out there,
mm-hmm,
or at some point we can arrive at a true morality.
mm-hmm,
Um, they are claiming to have found it, and perhaps they have not.
and I doubt them because they say they found the truth.
But again, this is something that you're able to argue with them about, and if they refuse to have the argument in the first place, then you're dealing with someone who's acting in bad faith,
Mm-hmm,
right? Um, I mean, back when we believed that the sun revolved around the earth, People that that refused to consider an alternative argument, of course, they weren't acting in the greatest of scientific endeavor. They weren't acting in the greatest of faith.
Hmm. Um,
But yeah, go
so,
ahead.
okay, so the point I'm trying to get to, the direction that we need to, I think, go is to maybe let's stop using the words subjective and objective. They're difficult words. Right and wrong, I could are more fluid, but I think that they're better as words because I mean it's wrong to kick a dog. Yeah, great, of course it is, but it's not wrong to do it for this other reason. So uh, by using right and wrong, uh, we're using our brains to interpret all of these things. We're we're going through this really quickly. Honestly, it's real. You can go through this tree very quickly. Someone's being bitten. I kicked the dog. It shouldn't be bad, and it should not be illegal to kick a dog. Don't create a law against it. You can go, you can fly through that tree. And the reason I made the tree, I can say that there are true ethics. There are ethical truths. There are aesthetic truths. You can argue them, and you can disagree about what those truths are, and that's fine. There are political truths. There are lawful truths. Someone can break the law. And I think that is a subjective statement. But if we're not going to use objective and subjective anymore, what do you propose instead? Right and wrong?
Um, True and untrue, true and false.
Okay. True and false, true and untrue. That would be uh, true does mean a little bit more uh, brain thinky. Truth exists within your head.
I don't think that's the case. I think that even if humans didn't exist and no animals existed, then it would still be true that that the Earth revolves around the sun.
With no one to measure any of those things, with no human brains,
It
it
is
would
still the
still
case
be
that that
a
happens.
physical, it would be a physical thing that is happening. But if there are no humans comprehending it, it isn't true. It is a physical process. If only physical processes existed, then there would be no true. There would be no language. There would be no word true. There would be no definition of true. I think we're just going to get back into this exact same argument, but with the word true and untrue. I'm going to
I
say
really think that
I'm going to say everything underneath that red line is true, and everything above the red line is also true. It could be true. So I still draw that line there, just with different words, maybe.
well, now you've got true on both sides of the line.
I know.
I don't think it works. This is
Um,
why I don't think this is why I didn't think that your placement of that line worked at all. I don't think I would have agreed with your placement of it at any point on the scale. Um, because when I think of truth,
hmm
I'm not giving that um, I don't give the fact that we are capable of observing the truth um, as being necessary for the truth to exist.
Of course it has to. If there if there are no more human ears, there is no music. Um, you can have sound waves that exist within the oxygen molecules. They're physically there, but there's no music because we can't hear.
But
If there is no one to comprehend, the Earth revolving around the sun. It is all within the physical. There's no mind, there's no brain, there's no intelligence, there's no nothing. There's not even any earthworm brains. Void of all life. There is no metaphysical.
I think that
There
there
is no truth.
is such thing as the truth that, as we understand it, and it all goes back again, like we were talking about last week a little bit about the theory of forms,
Hmm.
right?
I
There is,
Yeah, I took a look at that.
yeah. So there is, I think, a sort of um, we're using words to give ourselves the ability to communicate properties that already exist in the world.
We're describing things.
Whether or not we are capable of describing them doesn't make them not exist. And I think the same applies to things that are true. So whether or not we are capable of observing that something is true does not make it less true
If no one observes
or
it,
untrue.
if there is no observation,
It is still true.
no, can't be.
Okay.
This is
If
Schrodinger's cat. You're
there are
getting
no
towards
human
here.
beings on the planet
Hmm.
to observe a truth,
Hmm.
then I will then pose a question to you.
Hmm.
The Earth revolves around the sun. True or
Hmm.
false?
That requires a human brain, man. That question requires human brain. That requires thought. That requires definitions.
That is where
Earth
I
has a
disagree.
definition. Does Earth have a definition? Does revolve have a definition? Does sun have a definition? You are starting at the metaphysical box right there with that question.
Well, we have to use language in order to communicate.
Yes, we
And
have to
I
use language
honestly,
to communicate. I agree. In your
I think maybe
hypothetical,
that
in your
that
hypothetical,
language,
in your hypothetical, there is no such thing as true because there are no brains. You can say that it physically happens. Probably, you could probably say it physically goes around the sun. But when you asked me a question with language, and it has definitions of sun, revolution, and Earth, those things don't exist within the physical box. They exist within the metaphysical box. And if you're in the metaphysical box, you mandatorily have to have brains.
this is why I completely disagree with your chart then.
I know,
Because
because it's a
we're using words.
it is a difficult thing to comprehend. The idea that there are no brains within the universe, there is no truth. If there are no brains within the universe, I'm going to tell you specifically, if there are no brains within the universe, there is no truth.
Yeah, I think that's totally wrong.
There are physical things that exist, but if you start to measure them, if you start to determine a revolution around a star, you are adding definitions. And those definitions require brains. There is no, if there are no human brains, there is no sun, there is no revolution, there is no star, because those are all words that have definitions.
We are using words to communicate meanings for things that exist.
Yes, you and I are doing a metaphysical exercise right now.
Not really.
Yes, we
We're
are.
we're just communicating.
We're
We're communicating
communication.
meanings.
Communication exists within that metaphysical layer. All communication exists within this metaphysical layer. The sound waves and the electrons exist within the physical. But if I just gave you a bunch of random sound waves and electrons, you wouldn't be able to comprehend them because they aren't structured in a language. That language, that structure, that definition all belongs within that metaphysical box because they require
I think
a
that if this is
brain.
the stance that's being taken, then there is there's zero foundation for any of your arguments. Then,
Because
I mean,
I've told you many, many times that everything is subjective. This is the conclusion that you're coming to. Yes, you are getting to my conclusion. Everything is subjective.
except I
And there is
that's where
no
I disagree with
foundation.
you.
Yes, there is no foundation. Everything is subjective. Damn near everything is subjective. There's a very small amount of things that are physical and objective. And everything else is something that our brain either comprehends, makes up, or invents. We align these things. We put all of the things in boxes, categories, definitions. We measure the things. That's all brain stuff. That brain stuff produces subjective things. That is how I've come to this conclusion. This isn't like something I didn't think about. That language itself is an invention of the human brain. If there are no human brains, is there any language? If there are no human brains, there is no morality. If there are no brains within the universe, there is no definitions. There's no measurements. There's no uh, comprehension. So you starting at the comprehension level is fine. We can start from the comprehension level of discussion. That is an acceptable thing to do. But I'm telling you, there is a layer underneath it that is a physical, and everything we do above the comprehension level is subjective.
Um, I think that language. Let's see. Again, I think your idea of what is subjective and objective is or rather, your idea of subjectivity is far too broad.
It is
Um,
very broad. I agree. That's why I think that everything is broad. I mean, I'm describing literally every single thing that's ever been invented by the human brain. It's a very broad subject. And I think it's broad because we can change it. We can make it whatever we want. The human brain can invent measurements for time, or it can invent measurements like inches or centimeters, and those centimeters disagree with the inches. That is a subjective thing, don't you think? If we came
um,
across a completely new alien species, would they use inches, centimeters, and hours? No. They'd have
no, but
created
they
their
still would.
own. Subjective. That sounds subjective to me, doesn't it?
Well, they would still recognize, I think, in whatever language that they speak,
Mm-hmm.
um, certain truths. So they would still be capable of recognizing that the Earth revolves around the sun,
Mm-hmm.
even though
And
they might call it Blarf revolves
mm-hmm.
around Gorm.
I agree.
You know, but
Recognize,
the
recognize. You said the word recognize. What do you need
but
to do
well, the
recognition?
fact is that in order for both of us, regardless of what language we're using, to recognize that this is happening,
Mm-hmm.
means that the happening itself is true.
The happening itself is happening.
Yes.
You can't recognize a truth without a brain, without a cognition, without some
Well, I'm
sort
saying that
of.
truth does not need to be recognized before it can be
Of course it
true.
does.
No.
It has to be, or else it doesn't exist. Anything that
If the
isn't.
tree falls in the woods and no one was
Mm-hmm.
around to see it or hear it, did the tree fall in the woods?
How would you know? You have removed all human cognition from the situation. The word tree has a
Yeah, I
definition
have.
that your human brain comprehends. You have now made it, this tree, within my brain, and I'm imagining the tree falling in the woods. So in my imagination, a tree has fallen in the woods. But I can't do
Well,
that
the
without
answer
a
is
human
yes.
brain.
If the tree falls in the woods, no one's around to see or hear it. The tree still fell in the woods. The action took place.
The action
That
took
is a true
place.
statement that the tree
Fine.
fell in the woods.
It doesn't become true until a human comprehends it.
False.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, we're in Schrodinger's cat area, is what we're at right now. Things that aren't comprehended can still happen, but until we comprehend them happening, until a human brain unfolds the waveform, uh, it has, it's not true. It can't be, because truth requires comprehension. Truth requires an intelligent person to comprehend it. It requires some sort of uh, brain function to recognize that it is true. If it isn't recognized as truth, then it isn't truth.
I think that
There,
tying truth to the conscious experience is um, incorrect.
I think that what I would use to, how I would describe the thing that you are mentioning, this tree that no one comprehends, is a physical. It's in the physical layer. The tree falling is in this physical layer. The tree fell over. It caused some ripples within the oxygen molecules, and that, if a person were around to hear it, would have called a noise. But because no one was there, physically, it happened. Nature, elements, materials. There are physical things happening outside of human comprehension right now. There are physical things happening on Alpha Centauri that a human is not paying attention to.
And so, is it true that they're happening or not?
They're physically happening. I wouldn't say it's true until a person comprehends it, until a person sees it, understands, or doesn't even understand it, but just sees it. Or once you can't be true until you have entered a human brain. You can be physical before entering human brains, but you can't be true. And if let's go let's keep it with the stars. There is a sunspot on Alpha Centauri. I never see it, never comprehend it. Nobody ever looks at it. It happened. It was a physical thing, but until we start looking for evidence of it happening, until we look at it and comprehend it, it wasn't true. Anything that when you find evidence of that tree that has fallen, when you find evidence of that sunspot on Alpha Centauri, it becomes true.
I wonder. Well, I think maybe we table this one until next week, and we can have a conversation on what is and what is not truth, and whether or not truth uh, is required. Rather, whether conscious experience is required for truth.
Um, that's yeah. If we're at time, that is fine with me. I am going to tell you that yes, conscious
I
is required for truth. If
disagree.
you can find, uh, I think this is again a definitional issue. If you think that it is true without any human brains, it's not true. It's a physical thing. The physical aspect of the thing exists. Iron exists, floating out in space. The iron exists. But by calling it iron, we have given it a definition and we have entered the human brains. That iron exists. Existence is a complicated thing. I think that's the word we should look up. Existentialism.
I think that the fact that we've given it a name so that we can communicate that name with language doesn't make it any less true that it exists.
I'm not saying it's not true. I think it has become true now. Hey, we see a lump of thing out in space, so we comprehend that it's there. It's there. True. It's there. What is it? Well, we've measured it and determined that it is iron. True. But none of those things can happen.
But it was already there.
It was already there. It was in the physical layer. Right. And what do we think about that blob, that lump out in space? We think that it's there. We think that it can be measured. We think that it is 700 tons of iron. These are all metaphysical thoughts. And those can be true. You can have true metaphysical thoughts. But without the human brain, there is no truth. Without comprehension, without some sort of uh, cognition, there's no truth. We can call it a different word if that would help us move forward. I will just call it physical. Um, Physical things exist. Sure.
All right.
That
I
lump
gotta
of
go.
iron exists. Okay. I appreciate it. I'm having fun. Are you having fun?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad it's not just me preaching at somebody all day or you feeling like I'm trying to undermine you. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just telling you what I'm thinking. Uh, I appreciate you coming on. I'll pump out the videos as usual. Next week, we might have to talk about next week. Let me end the stream. Thanks for coming in. Thanks, Kyle, for listening. And I appreciate everybody. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.